You pick up your phone 40 times a day. You do not remember deciding to. One moment your hands are empty, and the next, your thumb is already scrolling. You tell yourself you will just check one thing. 20 minutes later, you are still there. That is not weak willpower. That is a hunting instinct, wearing a very different disguise. To understand what is actually happening, you have to stop thinking about your phone as a screen. Think of it instead as a bush. A bush that might have berries on it. Or might not. Your ancestors spent their entire lives foraging like this, walking from bush to bush, never knowing in advance which one would be full and which one would be empty. That uncertainty was not a flaw in the system. It was the engine that kept them searching. Here is the strange part. A guaranteed reward does not excite the brain nearly as much as an uncertain one. If you knew, with total certainty, that every single bush had exactly the same amount of fruit, you would have very little reason to keep exploring. But if some bushes are empty and some are overflowing, and you cannot tell which is which until you look, your brain lights up every single time you approach one. Why would evolution build it this way? Neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz discovered part of the answer while studying dopamine in the brain. He found that dopamine, the chemical most people associate with pleasure, is not actually released most strongly when you get a reward. It spikes hardest in the moment right before you find out whether you got one. It is not the berries that light up your brain. It is the not knowing. Schultz called this a prediction error signal, and it turns out to be one of the most powerful motivators your nervous system has ever built. Now hold that idea, and look at your phone again. Every time you refresh a feed, you do not know what is coming. Maybe it is nothing interesting. Maybe it is a message from someone you like. Maybe it is a video that makes you laugh. You cannot know until you check. Your thumb pulls down. The screen refreshes. And for a fraction of a second, your brain runs the exact same ancient program it once used to size up a bush full of maybe berries. This is where a second piece of the puzzle comes in. Decades before smartphones existed, psychologist B.F. Skinner ran experiments with pigeons and levers. He found that if a pigeon received a reward every single time it pressed a lever, it would peck at a steady, almost lazy pace. But if the reward only came sometimes, unpredictably, the pigeon would peck at the lever compulsively, far more often than when the reward was guaranteed. Skinner called this a variable ratio reinforcement schedule. It remains, to this day, the single most addictive reward pattern known to psychology. Slot machines are built on it. So is your notification feed. Have you ever wondered why refreshing an empty inbox still feels oddly compelling? But there is a third layer underneath all of this, and it might be the most human one. Your ancestors did not just forage for food. They foraged for each other. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar studied primate social behavior and found that grooming, physically picking through each other's fur, was not just about hygiene. It was social currency. It built trust. It maintained alliances. It told you, in a world without language, exactly where you stood in your group. Dunbar argued that as human groups grew larger, language itself evolved partly as a faster substitute for grooming, a way to maintain more relationships than fingers could physically touch. Now think about what a notification actually is. A like. A comment. A reply. Each one is a tiny, modern echo of being groomed. It tells you, in an instant, that you have not been forgotten. That someone, somewhere, is thinking about you. Your brain does not fully distinguish between a real social bond and a small red notification badge. To the oldest part of your mind, attention from another person is attention from another person, whether it comes through touch or through text. Put these three pieces together, and your phone stops looking like a piece of technology. It starts looking like something closer to a perfectly engineered watering hole. Uncertain rewards, pulling on your dopamine system the way an unpredictable bush once did. A variable schedule, keeping your thumb moving the way Skinner's pigeons kept pecking. And social signals, mimicking the grooming instinct that once told you exactly where you belonged in your tribe. No single feature would be powerful enough on its own. Together, they form something your ancestors' brains were never equipped to resist, because nothing like it existed until now. This is not a story about willpower failing. It is a story about ancient hardware meeting a stimulus it was never built to handle. Your ancestors checked bushes a few times a day, at most. You check a screen that behaves like an infinite bush, one that refreshes itself the instant you look away. Have you ever noticed that the anxious feeling of just checking quickly and the satisfied feeling of actually connecting with someone are not the same sensation at all? That difference matters. Reaching for your phone to send a real message to someone you care about draws on the same social instinct Dunbar described, the one that built trust and community for hundreds of thousands of years. But reaching for your phone simply because your thumb feels restless, simply because the uncertainty is calling to you, draws on something closer to Skinner's pigeon pecking an empty lever. One feeds you. The other just keeps you pecking. You are not broken for feeling pulled toward your phone. Your brain is doing exactly what dopamine, uncertainty, and social bonding evolved to make it do. The problem is not the wiring. The problem is the scale. A single unpredictable bush, checked a few times a day, was never going to overwhelm anyone. A pocket-sized device, engineered by teams of people who understand Schultz's prediction error and Skinner's reinforcement schedules better than most neuroscientists, is a different kind of bush entirely. It refreshes in 1/10 of a second. It never runs out. Knowing this will not make the pull disappear. But it changes what the pull actually is. The next time your thumb drifts toward your phone with no clear reason, you can notice the specific shape of that feeling. It is not curiosity about anything in particular. It is the ancient, restless itch of standing in front of an uncertain bush, waiting to find out what is there. And once you notice that, you get to make an actual choice, instead of running the same automatic program your ancestors once ran without ever knowing they were running it at all. You pick up your phone 40 times a day. But now, at least, you know exactly why your thumb moves before you decide to move it. It is not a glitch in you. It is a very old hunger, wearing a very new disguise, still convinced there might be berries on the other side of the screen.